And we are live. We are back again. Casual Dude, Nick. For those of you out there who might have been worried that we were stopping this after 2 episodes, you can calm those worries. We're back. We both, really, it was me. I wasn't available last week. So we'll probably touch a little bit on episode 3 as we go through this here. But
It's me. I wasn't available last week.
Whoa.
So we'll probably touch a little bit on.
There we go. I had my stream up, so I don't know if you heard that. It's good now, right?
You're good now.
Okay. But yeah, we'll probably talk about episode 3 a little bit as we go through here, but we just saw episode 4. I going into this one, I would say it's pretty much what I expected. I as someone who played the game, I had a feeling this was going to be a road episode. This was going to be a Joel and Ellie episode. We haven't had that really. This is the first time we're really getting the two of them together, because the first episode was the first episode. The second had Tess there. And then the third was basically all Bill. So I felt we were finally due to just get a ton of screen time for these two. And granted, it's, I think, the shortest episode of the bunch. I think it did a really good job. I really liked this episode quite a bit. Nick, your thoughts?
Well, gosh, I agree with you. It was very nice to get to spend time with them on the road. That was kind of the piece of the show I was most looking forward to, is seeing the wasteland that is the United States in its current form, in this point of the timeline. And we got a lot of that. I know the show is filmed in Calgary, but it definitely felt like Pennsylvania, where a chunk of the show took place. Felt like we were in, driving through old mining towns and steel mill towns in like Pennsylvania and Ohio, places that I've spent a lot of time on the road. So it felt sort of familiar but distant, given the setting. And yeah, we got a lot of time just with these two characters interacting, which I really loved. And the sequence in Kansas City was also quite gripping. So overall, yes, it was a short episode, but I still feel like we got a lot of content. Though maybe this is a hot take, I do feel like it's the episode with the most that I have to critique so far. The other episodes, I'm not going to say they were entirely perfect, but they were all pretty close. This one I have a few criticisms on, and we'll get into it, but good episode still.
That's great. I'm excited to hear what those are, because for me, I don't know if this is like jumping ahead, but I think that this was maybe, it's a high bar, but I think this was my third favorite. I think I like this more than the second one. Okay. And I think it's behind the third. I think it's behind the first. I was kind of unsure if I liked this maybe even more than that first one. I just really liked it. And I think a big part of it was this one had a lot of one-to-one scenes from the game, and a lot of it was done very, very well. The heart and soul of the game also is Joel and Ellie, and I just feel that they're finally like getting this right. This has a lot more. Not a lot more, but it has some of the only like lighthearted scenes. It has, the jokes, which that is something pulled from the games. We'll get into that. But why don't we just start from the beginning? With them I think this was the beginning, at least, them in the car. We don't have a flashback sequence. This is the first episode where I think we both kind of speculated we may get a flashback. Maybe every episode. Seems like that's not the case. I think that's fine here. I would have liked, a flashback, give us 10 extra minutes. I would not have been against that, because I think we both really like the flashback stuff. But I think it started out, pretty strong. Her with the magazines. I saw a lot of people worried that was going to be cut, because that is something from the games. People really like that little clip of her. It's dialogue for dialogue. Why are these pages sticking together? I knew they were going to include it. I had a feeling it'd be in this episode. So I thought that got a laugh out of me. And the laughs, I laughed quite a bit in this one. Not a lot. Some of the jokes were cheesy, but when they got to that final joke at the end, the diarrhea joke that made Joel laugh, that was not in the game. So there were some like new jokes, and that I would love how that as well. You weren't sure if that was going to be a joke. You kind of had a feeling it was going to be, but it's like the way she delivered it. It was very good. But what did you kind of think of some of these, more lighthearted lines of dialogue between these two characters?
Well, after last week, I think I needed lighthearted. Last week was obviously a tearjerker, but The diarrhea joke was legitimately a great dad joke. That cracked me up, just like it cracked Joel up. Um, I definitely enjoyed the bit with the magazine as well, the porno mag. That was funny. It's interesting that was lifted right from the game. Although it was interesting to hear from Craig Mazin after the episode saying that there were certain elements of the story that were pretty big changes from the game, or I guess you could say additions based on his description. Uh, but as far as some of the Joel and Ellie content goes beyond just the funny stuff. I mean, I really enjoyed the bit where they drove out into the woods and just had to sleep on the ground under the stars. You know, this show does a really good job of letting you feel the tension with the characters. And that wasn't a moment that was necessarily designed to be ultra tense, but the context of it is tense. I mean, they're out in the middle of nowhere. They're hoping nobody stumbles upon them or finds them. And anyone who's slept out in the woods for a night or two knows can be a little bit creepy. The eerie quiet, it can get to you, and the added layers of, well, if we get found, who knows what the heck could happen? We could get robbed or worse. And Joel says as much. He's like, people will have some pretty heinous things in mind if they find us. It really it creeps you out, and we see that play out because Joel literally can't fall asleep. We see him kind of staying up and monitoring the tree line with his gun in hand. So that this episode is a lot of ups and downs. You're laughing one moment, another moment you're scared. And I think the Kansas City sequence, it was, other than the diarrhea joke, pretty tense all the way through. And that's kind of the part of the episode I'm the most interested in, because I don't feel like I have that much to say about the traveling sequences. I just really enjoyed them. I thought that was really well done, but obviously the depth kind of comes in when we get to Kansas City.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, in the woods, I was like, as I just went camping like maybe a few months ago in November, and I was like, man, they must be cold. Because, I mean, for one, it's clearly not summer. And when you're sleeping like that low to the ground, I mean, they'd be waking up freezing cold. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't get that cold overnight where they are, but they're wearing jackets and stuff. I was just like thinking, like, I mean, it would be cold in that overnight stay. And I think that Joel was only staying up all night because of Ellie. I think that kind of her asking that question made him just kind of be a little bit overly cautious. And you could read that as him just being cautious to be cautious. Is that him worrying about Ellie a little bit? Is that already developing, which we can, of course, by the end of the episode, see hints of, that he's loosening up around her for sure. I mean, he's allowing himself to laugh at something, which is, far from where he was at, when she first walks into the room with him and he's like, find something to do. He's getting a little more open. We even see him ask her a question, and that was like, he's actually interested in her life a little bit and her background. I also like the little Chef Boyardee, it's 20 years old, Chef Boyardee. It's like delicious. And he was like, actually, I agree. Thought that was good.
Good to know there's no expiration date on those.
Yeah, and it's believable. I mean, I that's probably something, any like canned type of food is probably fine for the long run. And I don't, you could view that as a negative for Chef Boyardee, but they're probably looking at that as free advertising and like, yeah, hey, our foods last for a while. You're fine. It's whatever. It's processed. But I also really liked how there was tension. There was a sense of danger. And it's not like, finally, I think I talked about this a little bit before the show aired with you, that, the show is not about zombies. This is not a zombie show. There just happens to be like infected in it. And this episode makes you kind of feel the danger of humans. Like when she's like, oh, is it Fedra out here infected? And he just says, people could be out here and you have no idea what they're capable of. I mean, we're going to certainly get some characters that are in the game that are very scary. I can't imagine they're going to cut one character in particular that we're going to see. But yeah, people in some ways, I mean, some viewers are going to watch this show, come out of it thinking that some of these human characters are scarier than the infected. That's just going to happen as far as what scares you more. But yeah, what did you? So yeah, let's get into now. They arrived to Kansas City, and they're arriving, via one way, and there's all these cars kind of jumped up, which that made me feel anxious. That just I'm surprised nothing happened there. It felt like something was going to happen there, and that I think in the game maybe something does. Maybe there's a little shootout. I mean, they're of course cutting out a lot of these sections of action, which I think is smart. I don't think you need to have Joel and Ellie drive through and just seeing people walking and shooting. That's The Walking Dead. That's not this show. But we kind of have a very abrupt transition to these two characters who this woman is interrogating this man, this older guy, and it is jarring. I think they could have done that a little cleaner. It was a little bit jarring, and for context, these are new characters. These are not characters who are in the game at all. This group is in the game, but there's no faces to this revolutionary group that's there. So this woman is new. The guy with her is new. The sequence of them arriving, though, with the guy saying he needs help, that's exactly from the game, though. So that, and even him crashing into that shop, exactly 1-to-1. So that was really cool to see. But what did you think about all that?
Well, this kind of brings me to my first soft critique, and this is something I can let go, but it was just kind of like, Joel, why the hell in this process of navigating across the Midwest and the plains and whatever else, did you choose to go through Kansas City? There's been all this talk about how, in the remote places there's no infected, but the cities is where you supposedly tend to find them. And obviously we didn't see any in this episode, but it's still clearly a concern. And yet, why did we not navigate around the major city? I don't know. Fine, but the show needs to happen, right? So they get into some trouble, and to bring it back to the woman character and the doctor guy in this little cell. Definitely a bit jarring. No idea who these people are. And there's nothing wrong with introducing new characters in kind of a smash cut, jarring way. But I think this is the first time where I've wondered, it's probably too early to say, but I've wondered a little bit if this character is miscast or this actor is miscast in the role. This woman, and I've seen her in other things.
Sure. Yes.
I'm familiar with her as an actress. She's the leader of some kind of mercenary rebel group, whatever exactly they are, and she's meant to be like this sort of headstrong, badass, cold-hearted lady, and she just kind of feels like somebody's mom.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if I bought her as this character. Early days, clearly this is going to be, at least a couple of episodes that we're going to spend with her.
Yeah, there'll be an arc.
From what we've seen so far, I'm not totally buying her in this role. Could change. And I didn't really understand, and of course there is surely more to come, but I didn't really understand what the significance of this doctor was, who apparently delivered this woman. I guess part of the goal was to tell us, the audience, how cold-hearted she was, that she was willing to just shoot the doctor who delivered her. So we'll surely get more of an explanation on who that guy was and what she was interrogating him about. But I feel a little frustrated, and maybe that's by design. I feel a little frustrated because I feel like there's stuff going on with this group and these characters, and it's unclear in a way that's like, I don't even know what direction we're pointing in. So I enjoyed the Kansas City sequence in parts, but there were definitely parts where I was just like, what's happening? Like, I don't feel like I'm getting quite enough information.
Sure. I actually kind of felt the same a little bit about the woman. I want to say I got on board with her after a little bit, but the first few scenes with her, especially her going out to the group, and once it was clear that she was kind of in charge, I was taken out of it a little bit. I was like you, I wasn't really buying it. I've seen her before. And I kind of, yeah, I agree. I'm kind of like withholding a little judgment because, you know, the guy that's with her, I think in most shows that guy is the leader of the group, right? Like that's a lot of generic type of shows would have a guy like that beard be in charge, and they're going for something a little bit different, and I'm okay with that. But her acting, it's her acting. It's nothing to even do with her appearance. I just think her acting was a little bit off to me, but it's I'm waiting because there hasn't been any big scenes with her yet. Like if once maybe she'll bring it when there's like a really big scene, and she seems really hell bent on finding Henry, which
Who's Henry?
I know who Henry is. Henry is
this kid or the guy that was with this kid. I don't know if they're father and son or I have no idea. But
yeah, I know who Henry is. Do you want me to tell you who they are?
Is it one of them?
It's one of them.
Okay. Well,
yeah,
that's what
it's
I
one
think.
of them. It's not you saw the end of the episode, and I was pleasantly surprised to see them already. I wasn't expecting Henry and Sam until, well, okay, Sam is the other guy's name. So Henry's the older guy. Sam is the younger one. I expected them in like episode 6-ish, so I'm happy we're getting them early. I think that's pretty cool. They're definitely very memorable characters from the game. Very, very memorable. The circumstances of their appearance is a little bit different as far as they're kind of in hiding as well right now from this group. And I don't think there's much context to when Joel and Ellie meet them. I think it's just that Joel, and we're probably going to see this. This isn't a crazy assumption, but Joel sees himself in Henry because Henry's watching after a younger kid, just like he's watching after a younger kid. So I think we're going to see those parallels, and it'll be really interesting to see. And you're going to learn a lot by the next episode, because I think next episode will be, it might be safe to say we're just going to have a Henry and Sam episode. Maybe it'll be like the Bill and Frank episode. It might be. It's possible. I didn't see the preview for next week.
It didn't. It definitely seemed to feature Joel and Ellie. But who knows? A section of the episode might be dedicated to that.
Yeah, it might not be a full thing.
To take it back to the, I don't even know the character's name. The woman who's the leader of this group. I want to be like frank with myself and say, maybe I'm judging her because she's a woman. Maybe that's a part of it. But I don't think so, because when I compare to a character like Tess,
sure, right, I was just thinking that
immediately you buy her as experienced and weathered and tough and somebody that can survive in this world. So I think it is the performance.
It's the performance. It is, because I told you I just watched GoldenEye today, and when Judy, is that her name? Judy Dench, M. Yeah. She comes on the scene, and it's like, I don't know why, I'm just like thinking of that, and it's like, whoa, she is powerful. She's a powerful woman right away.
Yeah. You got to cast the part right.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We will see. I'm reserved. Sounds like we're both reserving judgment, but I feel you on it. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't like awful, but it was not like everybody else. It wasn't quite just wasn't quite there. It was a little, the lines, like just reread a few lines, I think. I don't know. Some of the delivery was just a little weird, a little off.
We'll see what we end up getting there. So as far as the car crash sequence in the ambush, I thought that was really tense and really well done. And obviously we get some really interesting character moments there with Ellie as she is packing heat. She hit a gun in her bag and ends up saving the day, and takes a life, or might as well have taken a life. It ends up getting taken by Joel moments later.
Right.
And we learn that this wasn't the first time that she's killed somebody, apparently. At least that's what she seems to be alluding to. Mm-hmm. Sort of another mystery planted. We don't get any more information on that. She says she doesn't want to talk about it, but it certainly left me wondering, like, what's the story there? Is it connected to, how she got to the quarantine zone, or how she got bit? I don't know. We're presumably going to find out, but we're learning there's more of a history there with Ellie than just, a kid who grew up in the quarantine zone and that's it. Like there's something going on with the backstory that's interesting.
Even Joel wants to know. Joel's asking,
You and me both, Joel. I'm very curious.
He wants to know too. I think it's safe to say that one of these episodes will be an Ellie flashback episode, more or less. I don't know if it'll be the whole thing, but I think it's safe to say, and I think I mentioned this one of the other weeks, but her kind of some of her backstory. She doesn't have any backstory in the first game, but there's added DLC, and that DLC is kind of her backstory. And I think they're gonna. It's very good. It might as well be in the game. I think they're gonna 100%. There's been a few things, like for example, even the joke book. They didn't say that was from Bill's, right?
I guess
she
not.
just had it. Yeah. So that is like, that's to me. So that is something from her past. So they're gonna do the past. They're gonna do stuff with her because we will see where she gets that book, and it might sound incidental, not important, but it's interesting. It's certainly interesting.
Well, talking of her past, Joel certainly, we see him being a bit paternal to her. He witnesses her having to shoot a man. He's concerned about her state of mind.
Right, her mental state.
He refers to her as cargo earlier in the episode, but this is a facade. This is a husk or a shield he's built up around himself so that he doesn't get too emotionally attached to anybody, which I guess is probably somewhat necessary to make it in this world. But he attempts to console her. He attempts to talk with her about what they experienced, and she's like, "You're not very good at this, are you?" And he's like, "No," which was sort of humorous, but. It was an interesting moment between those two in that room, one of many, and I'm curious to see how much more he ends up letting his guard down, because bit by bit we're seeing it happen, and it's nice for us as an audience, but will it lead to him making an emotional choice that he wouldn't normally make? Probably. It's probably where this is heading. But even in this episode, we see someone asking for help, and Joel knows that's a trap, and she's like, "Are we gonna help him?" And Joel's like, "No." And that's part of who he is, but he's also clearly a caring guy, and he sees probably a bit of his daughter in Ellie, and he cares about Ellie. It's interesting.
Yeah, he's an very interesting character. We said before, he's a survivor. He's not someone who gung ho. He's not a survivor who glorifies in it and is vain and just loves it. He survives in the world, the hand that he's dealt, right? Like he's not going to help the guy. He's not someone who's going to help people. That's not Joel. Now, would he help? Would he help people probably pre all this crap? I'm sure he did. That's the type of guy you feel him as. I'm sure he was that type of person. Sure, probably in his own lane, but I think he's one of the all-time just characters. Like he's such a great, interesting character. Like you said, we're going to see his layers. We've been seeing his layers kind of even come down quite a bit in this episode. Yeah, referring to her as cargo. In the first, beginning of the episode. So, it changed quite a bit by the end.
So I want to talk about what the heck was going on in the floor in that room. I guess you probably can't tell me, but I mean, that was bizarre. That was kind of like, it's wild. I mean, we've talked about this in past videos now. You told me this was not a zombie show. I thought of it as a zombie show. I do not anymore. The whole episode goes by, no zombies, no infected that we see. But the one sort of supernatural weird thing we see is our two characters there. They peer into this room, and the floor is like
moving, almost protruding. Yeah.
I was certainly taken aback by that. I have no guesses. I don't understand what's happening there. That seems very separate from like anything that we've seen so far in terms of the infected or any of the more high octane stuff. That seemed like very fantastical, almost like magical. I'm sure it's not magical. That was weird.
Well, believe it or not, I'm in the boat with you. I don't know what it is.
You don't know? Wow.
I have no guesses. That is not game. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. Like, it makes me think there's like a giant thing in there. Maybe I don't think so. It seems something. It almost feels like something that they did by accident, or maybe it's something. It's either that or it's something they discovered and they're hiding it in a way, keeping it from the others. They seem to know what it is, though. They seem to know.
Yeah, they reacted in a way that was not like they were sort of frightened by it, but they weren't necessarily shocked.
Right.
It was
Right.
almost just like an rather than a what the hell reaction, it was an oh no reaction, which, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, alludes to them maybe having some idea of what's going on there. Um, okay, so the episode obviously ends, and again, it was a short episode, and you know a show's good when an episode ends, and you go, "Damn it," which was
Yeah.
basically my reaction. But the episode ends with our characters being woken up by Henry and what was the other guy's name?
Henry and Sam.
Henry and Sam. So obviously, our female character again, the character name escapes me. I should probably just look it up at this point. She keeps referring to Henry and implying that he built something. Perhaps he was. I'm just guessing here. Maybe the leader of the quarantine zone before it got kind of ravaged or taken down. I don't know. I mean, what if anything can you tell me about the connection between this group and Henry?
Yeah, I don't have anything because as far as I remember, unless I'm just leaving out details, Henry and Sam are basically kind of more or less on the run. You don't really know what they're on the run from. They don't connect it to this group. Like, this group is in the game. Henry and Sam are in the game, but you don't they don't really like create a narrative and a story around it. Like, this is very connected. Like, this group is after Henry. Like, you don't it's separate. So it's not really like a connection. So I mean, what would I think? Like, my prediction, I mean, my only thing, and there has to be more to it. It seems like he maybe, and this can't be it. This isn't like enough, but this group seems to be, of course, like anti-Fedra. They overthrew them, it seems like, and they're in charge of the quarantine zone. And Henry is a supporter of Fedra. I don't know. Like, I don't see why it matters. Like, he's one guy, and why? I mean, I know that. Like, I mean, they're gonna probably change Henry a little bit, but he's I don't know. In the game, he's not so much of a. He's kind of like Joel. He just wants to survive. He's not out to. I'm sure he just wants to get out of the city, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where they're going to go with that. And I get where you're kind of like, yeah, like the narrative with that's just not clear yet. So we'll have to kind of see what that's, what
Well,
that's all
kudos
about.
to the show for continuing to grip not only people like myself who've never played the game, but also a guy like you who has. They've made, like you said, there's a number of one-to-one sequences where it's almost exactly the same, but they've made enough changes where everyone watching is pretty invested and curious and not sure what to expect next. And what can you say? I mean, that's a perfect way to adapt anything. So yeah, I don't know that I have a ton more to say about this episode. Like I said, it was one that I had maybe more critiques about than the others. I might agree with you that it's second is probably better than episode 2 overall. I think it had higher highs, maybe just a few lower lows for me. They weren't even that low, but by the standard of this show, I would classify a couple of the moments as a little bit more iffy. But I mean, do you want to talk about episode 3? We never got to talk about it.
Yeah, we can talk about episode 3 a little bit. The woman's name, by the way, is Kathleen.
That's the
That's the
character
name of the name of that character is Kathleen. So also worth noting that the gentleman with her, the white beard, he voices.
Oh,
I think
I
he
saw
voiced
it in the post episode. He voiced Tommy.
Tommy in the game.
Yeah.
Yes. So
He
pretty
was,
neat that they gave him a role in the show. Really neat.
it's the second time they've done that, right? Because the Marlene character was played by the same actor, which is cool.
Tess as well.
Tess?
I don't know if you knew that. Tess as well. Tess voices Tess in the game, the actress.
No, that's not
Yeah.
true.
Yes.
The character, the actress who plays Tess is from. I'm familiar with her as an actor. The woman who played Tess just died.
Well, I'm saying she voices Tess in the game as well.
Oh, are you sure?
She's so just like Marlene. Marlene is, an actress, like the woman playing Marlene.
Yeah.
She also voiced Marlene in the game.
Uh-huh.
So, I know Tess also is an actress, so she does other things, but Marlene and Tess both are the characters in both mediums.
Tess is the woman who was Joel's girlfriend, right?
Yes.
Then no, I
Yeah.
promise. The woman who plays Tess is from like Mindhunter and other stuff.
Yes. And she also voices Tess. Give
But
it a look. Give it a. I'll do it. I've got it up. Because Anna. So she, Wikipedia page, blah blah blah. She is known as Emma in Timeless, as well as the voice performance capture for Tess in the video game Last of Us.
Okay, I guess I'm mistaken.
Yeah, she did in 2013. With the game, she did the voice and performance capture, and then they cast her in the show.
Okay, I thought I read that she passed away.
Well, she did pass away as well. Yeah, she passed away only a few weeks ago.
Oh man, yeah, that's very sad. Okay, well, yeah, we can. Sorry for that deviation from the
Yeah,
path.
sorry for the deviation. Yeah, but
We can talk about episode 3.
yes. So episode 3 was incredible. It was an incredible piece of television. I mean, we talked about it a little off camera, but I thought it was amazing. I thought it was a masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean, when we look back, at the end of the decade, and people are talking about greatest shows, greatest episodes from the 2020s, that's going to be up there with the best of them. There's really no way around it. I mean, it was, first of all, so different from everything else. It felt like this little oasis in this brutal desert where we get to see this love story amidst all this horror, and it it functions almost like a bottle episode. Like it's this self-contained thing, and it ends up affecting the broader story, but it was almost just like this nice escape where we got to see there are still flowers growing in this wasteland, and we see these two characters who I gotta be honest, like I did not have any idea that Bill was a gay character. I wouldn't have supposed that. Um, and maybe that's on me. Maybe that's on me for, thinking, oh, Nick Offerman, stereotypically burly, manly man, but they throw a curveball at you. It's like, no. And that was quite interesting. And it was hilarious that we were literally messaging each other, and I said, while we were watching the episode, and I said, "Am I crazy, or is there sexual tension between Bill and Frank?" And then within like 2 minutes, they were kissing, and I was like, "Okay, I am not crazy." As it turns out, that was that was real. And I really like the fact that somehow or another, Frank could just tell. He's like, I think Bill might be in the closet, and I liked the line where he was like, "Who's the girl you're singing about?" He's like, "Ah, there's no girl." And yeah, then they had their initial romantic moment, and then we see this love story that spans years, and wow, like the episode has received many plaudits, rightfully so. People have praised the acting, the directing, the writing, everything. And I know it was a big deviation from the game. And I'm so glad they chose to do what they did, because it gave us this just timeless classic episode. I can't say enough positive things about it. It was so great.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Huge change from the games, and I'm over here, and I think a lot of fans are happy with it, like really happy with the changes. Bill is a very different and same type of character in versus the game and the shows. In the game, you just don't get all this context. Like, you know, Joel and Ellie do meet him. He does not die before they get there. Like, they do meet Bill. Bill helps them get the car. They're pushing the car down the road to get it to start while infected are running at them. They're shooting at them. Very game like sequence. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, I did picture that. I'm like, oh, this would be pretty neat to watch. You know, on the big screen, on the smaller screen TV. And I'm so glad that they didn't go that route. And I think it was also, like, once again, a surprise for people who've played the game, because I'm over here sitting there now, like, being like, well, I know Bill lives. I know Bill lives. I know Joel meets Bill. So when Bill took that drink, which we don't see him take the drink. I think he takes it off screen, I believe, right?
Yeah.
I was waiting for Frank to tell him that he needs to go on and live. And I thought he was going to, like, maybe go throw it up, but no, he doesn't. And I respect the decision. You know, I've seen people say, yeah, it just sucks we're not going to get Bill. I agree. He was a great character, but the thing is, he's not in the game much. He's not. So what more would we have gotten? We would have gotten half an episode of him with Joel. We already saw him meeting Joel in the flashback. So that was accomplished. We saw those two characters interact quite a bit. It was perfect. It was so perfect. I've seen some criticism that, you know, it deviates too much and, you know, it goes off course, but this was just so good. I mean, it's so good. You're sitting down, you're watching an episode of TV. Are you that anxious to continue the Joel and Ellie story? Yes, but I don't think they pulled this cheap trick either, where episode 2 did not leave on this huge cliffhanger. I'd be maybe feeling that way a little bit if it was like, oh, but I really want to see what happens there. Like, they did this episode at the right time. It's in the beginning of the show, so we don't have these huge expectations yet. Like, if they did that now, where this end kind of with a pretty decent cliffhanger, and then we just got an episode with random characters that we learned about, then it would probably feel a little more, you know, out of place. This worked, and we still got Joel and Ellie stuff. We had an extra 15 minutes basically at the end of that episode with them.
That's the thing that I don't want to, you know, leave out of the conversation. We still got, like, some really interesting content with them. Especially, I found it sort of disturbing, that moment where Ellie's down in the basement and she's, like, up close and personal with this infected who seems to be on the brink of its demise. Right. And she stabs it in the head, cuts it open. She's, like, experimenting with it. Like we talked about before, there's some layers here. There's something a little spicy, a little interesting about Ellie that we're not even, I think, tapping into yet. There's some darkness there that I want to get into, but that was one of my takeaways from that section, was like, what's going on with Ellie?
Yeah,
that was a little disturbing.
It was, yeah. She's definitely, like, a little bit of a dark child. She's both that, and she's also a very, you know, I think she's somewhat of a blank slate. She's a sponge. She absorbs things around her, and she's very open to learning. She's very open to just, you know, people. I think she's innocent to a fault. I think she's maybe too trusting as well. You know, we're going to see all these things kind of play out. We have seen some of them play out, you know, as well. I mean, also that comparison of the first episode with Joel's daughter, when when they're driving and she goes, are we gonna, you know, stop, we're gonna help them. Same thing happened in this recent one with Ellie, right? Like, there's callbacks there where I'm sure Joel is having deja vu, you know, in these moments. But yeah, that episode 3 was really, really good. I know told you that Frank, like, that's also a big difference. Like, they changed their relationship from hatred to love, and they played so many tricks on us, because, you know, me in the game, you know, me who's played the game, I seemingly know that these two end up hating each other, because you never meet Frank. You just see Frank's suicide letter, and it's written to Bill saying how much he hated Bill, that he's just glad that he's not going to be living anymore, and that he doesn't have to deal with Bill. And Joel reads it, and you can choose to give it to Bill, And I do. Yeah, I do, because I want to hear that dialogue. And Bill's very gruffy. Bill is not like he is in the show. He's very just like, whatever, for, F off, Frank, a good riddance. So when they have that scene in the show where I think we had a 4-year time jump, and they're arguing. Frank leaves the house. They're arguing. I'm like, oh God, here we go. We're gonna see, why Frank kills himself. And no, they didn't do that. They had that little scene. I think that was there purposeful to just make us think that we're going in that direction. And it didn't do that. In the games though, Bill, it is implied very much that Bill is gay, because the magazines are there. And there's a few other like little comments, but it's never really, I mean, I guess you can assume that Frank, those two were together, but it's not. I think that suicide note is enough to maybe think that maybe not, maybe they weren't. I don't know. It's not really confirmed.
Well, I like this version better. There's enough to feel dour about in this world. I enjoyed having something to feel a little more positive about, even if it did end tragically with both of them dying. They went out, on their own accord. They chose it, and they were still able to give Joel sort of an uplifting message from beyond the grave, which I think is something that's going to continue to inspire him as we move forward. But Neil Druckmann, in the post-episode interview after episode 3, said it perfectly about adapting the game. He was like, if it's as good or better, let's change it. If it's not as good, let's leave it the way it is. And I think that's the perfect way to approach doing what they're doing. And it shows a lot of humility, because I'm sure for somebody like him who created this incredible game that is so often revered as having one of the greatest stories in the history of video games, there's you would think maybe a desire to not change anything.
Right.
Why would I change it? XYZ different reasons, it's been heralded as the greatest. Why would I change it? So I appreciate that he has this willingness to collaborate with Craig Mazin and to change things when he thinks it's for the better. It's all making for a great show. So yeah, I again can't sing the praises of episode 3 enough. It was something special.
Yeah. It's a mutual respect that they both have, that I think a lot of creators suffer from. That's just how it is, where, for better or for worse, I think a lot of directors are like this, a lot of authors, a lot of creators, just they view their work as like sacred, and that they did this, so it needs to be this maybe exact way. And it seems like, Craig knows who he's working with, and Neil knows who he's working with. Like, he's working with people that can help him, and he's very clearly open to changing things. And I feel like they're, of course, keeping a lot of the big things, but I love also that they just put these little things in there that are like just a lot of the same dialogue transfers over, these little moments. I've also noticed that the sound effects of reloading the guns, it's taken from the game. Like, that's something that you'd only know that if you played here and heard that over and over and over. Like, there was I don't think I mentioned this, but in the second episode, they're bandaging Tess up a little bit. It's exactly the same. It is the same sound effect as when you're using a first aid kit. That's just like so cool that they're doing that. Like, this team behind this, you couldn't ask for a better team. Like, you've got the creator of the franchise, the IP, and you've got it with such a talented crew that's bringing it to the big screen. I mean, it is perfect. It's what you want any adaptation to be a part of, essentially.
And it makes me hopeful and I feel a little cautious, because a lot of the right lessons and a lot of the wrong, and I'm going to be shifting to a broader topic here. I think a lot of the right lessons and a lot of the wrong lessons are going to be learned by folks in the world of showbiz watching this show and the success of this show. There's going to be people who get why it worked, and there's going to be people who think they can mimic it without understanding why it worked. And so we're probably going to get a deluge of video game adaptations into shows and movies, and I'm sure we'll get a couple of good ones, but I bet we're going to get a lot of stinkers where they're just going to think that X plus Y equals Z, no matter what way you do it. And it's like, no, there's some very specific reasons that this show is working so well. You've got some excellent creative minds behind it. You've got great actors. You've got the perfect network. over top of everything, and it'll be interesting to see what the next like 5 years look like in terms of copycats, because there's going to be a few, and it might get ugly in a few cases.
I know. It's already been ugly though. I think we're prepped. We've had a lot of bad gaming movies and TV, so it's going to be a little hard to say. Like I agree. I think we're going to see copycats, but it's going to be hard to, unless it goes on TV. I think that's when it will feel like, okay, maybe they're trying to mimic something, because we've had so many movies already. So I think that's, I think is BioShock going to be a show? I feel like that's one that has potential. I think it's going to be a show. It's going to be on Netflix. So there hasn't been too many like big production gaming shows. I don't think so.
Not really.
I guess we'll see how that goes. I don't know how much more we have. I think we didn't give a final number verdict. I will also say this episode gave me pretty big Mando vibes, more than any of the other ones. Like them in the car when he calls her cargo, I was like, he's Mandalorian.
Typecast again, Pedro Pascal. He loves playing gruff mercenary types who help a young child traverse a scary landscape. Yeah, it's there's some similarities for sure. But if I were to give this episode a rating, say episodes 1 and 3 were 10s or close to 10s, I guess that might make episode 2 something like an 8.5. Maybe that makes this one like a 7.5. It really says something when the floor so far is like a 7.5 or an 8. It's just a really strong show through and through. But yeah, maybe like I'll probably say an 8 for this episode.
That's fair. Yeah, I think for me, I would also give the first and the third both 10s. I think they're both 10s. Second would be an 8, I think, maybe a 7. Honestly, it's between that 7, 8. I thought it was really good. This one, I'm going to give it a 9. I thought it was very, very good. I think it was shy of being perfect, but I think for what it was, we're getting a lot of like what I love about this. Joel and Ellie and all that worked like so well. I just love hearing them talk to each other. I love hearing Joel get annoyed with Ellie and just his little comments. I'm 56 years old going up these steps, and it's just all like, it just really, really works. It's very natural and fluid. And yes, it's a little bit short. Yes, that actress wasn't the greatest, and that group and that kind of abrupt shift to this new narrative is a bit jarring, but everything else worked so good that I think for me, my enjoyment was high. So I'm going to go with a 9.
Awesome. Well, this is me being pedantic, and for those who have listened all the way through, we appreciate you. But I feel like we have to address that Annie Wershing played Tess in the video game. She was the one who just recently passed away. And it was a different actress, Anna Torv, who played Tess in the show, who was the one I was referring to, who was also in Mindhunter, which is a great show. So it was 2 different actors.
Well, so you're thinking, okay, so this is the difference here. Okay. The Last of Us got remade. She does, so the woman who died.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Anna Weischerg, or I might be saying that wrong. Annie or Anna Weischerg. They remade The Last of Us?
So Anna Torv.
Yeah, Anna Torv plays her in the show.
So she also, unless I'm tripping. Why was I thinking that that she did the voice too? Because I don't see that now.
Yeah, maybe it's just because they're both roughly Ann names, Anna and Annie. But yeah, they're 2 different performers. I was thrown off. I was like, wait, what? I was totally confused. But yeah.
Wow. I mean, maybe it's possible that I I may have read something that said that. Maybe it was just wrong, because I swear I saw that. Because you're right. Yeah, the voice actor. Oh shit. Yeah. So I thought. I mean, that means that. Yeah. I mean, I legitimately thought that the woman playing her died.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I
No.
thought that because I thought they were the same.
Thank
And maybe
God, because I'm really hoping for another season of Mindhunter, and her not being in that would be quite a bummer. She's really good in the show. So
Wow. Yeah, I totally thought that. I'm glad you cleared that up, because I was like, I know I read that. I know I saw that, but could have just been wrong. Because like I was like reading about how, oh, she saw her, she was able to bring her character to life, and fully realize it. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it is because they share, a very similar name. I don't know.
perhaps.
First name at least. I don't know. Well, glad you clear that up, Nick. Glad you clear that up. But do we have anything else? I don't know. This might be the end. I think we covered it, and I think that next episode, it's moving along. I'll tell you what. Like this is we're gonna be getting to the meat and potatoes here with Henry and Sam, and I guess I'll ask you one thing. Do you think Joel's brother is still out there?
I would guess. I would guess yes, but I would not be shocked if I was wrong. I would not be shocked if they got to Wyoming only to learn that he's gone elsewhere, that he's passed away. I mean, that would not be surprising. I guess we'll find out, but I would
Yes.
guess yes. We'll get some content between the two of them in present day. We'll see. I don't know. I like not knowing.
All right. Well, anyone who's watching, whether it's now on the playback, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys on episode 5, which I just saw this on Twitter today, just now. So I think this has just been announced. So next Friday is, of course, the Super Bowl.
Sunday
is on Sunday. The Super Bowl is on Sunday when this episode airs.
Yeah.
Eagles fan here from Philly. I'll be watching probably a lot of the country, not the world, but the country. So HBO has chosen to move up the release of the episode to Friday.
Oh, did they really? I did not know this.
Episode 5 out on Friday. Saw this on Twitter. So, I mean, let's hope I'm not wrong like I was about the test thing, and it wasn't just someone saying this, but allegedly, according to Discussing Film, which they're usually pretty accurate, it will be airing on Friday. So we'll be maybe doing this episode probably Friday then, if we're both around, because we'll have to see.
Yeah, or at some point before or after the Super Bowl. I mean, that's pretty savvy on the part of HBO. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that most people who are fans of the show probably are going to watch the Super Bowl and will watch the show at a different time anyway. So to move the release date makes sense.
It's smart to move it up and not. I think most shows I remember growing up waiting for a show, and I would just be so pissed, like, oh my god, they'd push it back. Usually they would push it back a week, and I'm glad they're not. It's neat, but then the wait for the next one will feel a little more significant. That's all.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it. The preview for the next episode looked pretty darn action packed. Clearly,
it's gonna be
some serious major stuff. So I'm pumped. Can't wait.
Yeah, I know it's coming. And it ain't gonna be pretty. I'll say that.
Okay, I'm nervous. You're making me nervous. All right, we'll see how it plays out.
All right, guys. Nick, I'll talk to you later, and we'll see you guys on the next video.
Peace out.
Later.